Welcome back to another episode of Out Loud Geek, where we discuss news and views about pop culture, science fiction, fantasy, food, cooking, the outdoors, and more. Just how bad does a show have to become before the media starts to tell the production company to cancel it? Apparently, that's a new accomplishment earned by Netflix for their now completely rejected series, The Witcher. The second half of the episodes for The Witcher Season 3 were recently dropped by Netflix, and they are a complete unmitigated disaster. These are the final episodes to feature Henry Cavill as Geralt, because he was so disgusted by all of the changes and deviations that the show's showrunner and writers were making to the source material that he finally became too fed up and had announced after the show's failed second season that the third season would be his last. Fans naturally were devastated, and now that all of the third season's episodes have aired, the ratings are now in and they indicate what the fans truly think about the show. During the show's first season, viewers loved it, giving it an 89% average audience score over on Rotten Tomatoes. The second season, however, is when everything began to fall apart, with fans giving the show only a 56% average audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. But now, for the third season, the viewers and fans alike have spoken, giving the series a 22% average audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. And that is a truly bad audience score. These declining audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes perfectly align with the waning number of people actually watching The Witcher. According to Samba, which tracks over 48 million connected televisions, only 597,000 US households watched Season 3's Episode 6 of the show, as compared with the 885,000 US households that had tuned in to watch the first episode from the third season. And that's a drop in viewership of around 33% across Season 3. Now, respected media publications are even calling upon Netflix to cancel the series. Yesterday, Forbes released this article entitled, "It's Time for Netflix to Cancel The Witcher Before It Gets Any Worse." I hate to say it, but the time has come. Netflix needs to put The Witcher out to pasture. What was once a promising new fantasy series with a rich treasure trove of novels and games to draw from for a Game of Thrones-style adaptation has descended into lazy writing, bizarre deviations from the source material, and modern Hollywood's worst bad habits all wrapped into one. Season 3 of the dark fantasy show has seen the lowest viewership numbers and the lowest review scores so far, with every episode rated lower than any episode from Season 1 or 2. Part of this is almost certainly fan protest over the exit of lead actor Henry Cavill, who many view as the heart and soul of The Witcher. While Cavill's Geralt will be replaced by Liam Hemsworth, fans are understandably upset, especially given how truly lackluster Cavill's final episodes were. But much of Season 3's low ratings are simply because it isn't very good. The writing is confusing and quite often sloppy. Bad modern dialogue, an often overly confusing plot, and totally unnecessary changes from the books all conspire to make the third season truly baffling and quite often dull. The fact that they stuck closer to the books in some ways this time around only makes the changes more confusing, like making the small child Radovid a grown man just so he could have sex with Jaskier the Bard, who was previously straight. It often feels like the showrunner and writers are barely even interested in adapting these stories and just want to create the most generic fantasy ever made. And this is why Cavill left the show. I might be okay with these deviations if the final product was watchable, but it's not. And I say this as a huge champion of the first season, which I liked a great deal more than many of my fellow critics. In any case, now is the perfect time to put this show out of its misery. Not only is the star gone, the ongoing writers and actors strikes means that no production can move forward. The WGA and SAG-AFTRA unions appear to be a long way off from any kind of deal with the big studios and producers, and that means new content is about to dry up fast. Netflix could easily pull the plug on this expensive project and blame it on the strikes. And that truly is what Netflix should do. Will the company do any soul searching about why this series has fallen so completely from grace, or are we just doomed to repeat the same problem over and over and over again? I do feel bad for the other remaining cast members who have poured so much of their lives and hard work into this project. Anya Chalotra, in particular, is terrific as Yennefer. Many talented actors have done great work on this show, working with the scripts that they were given. But the show peaked early and has been in steady decline for too long now. Better shows have been canceled before their time at Netflix. This one has run its course. I wish things had gone differently, I genuinely do. It saddens me a great deal that we have come to this point. I didn't expect to write an article like this. I didn't expect Cavill to leave a project he was once so passionate about. I didn't expect Netflix and the show's creators to botch everything so completely. But here we are. And that was a really good summation of The Witcher and why the show has completely self-destructed. Now let's take a look at the show's casting director, who recently admitted to using her job to affect change in viewers and to manipulate their unconscious bias. Casting director Sophie Holland, who has worked on a number of big-name genre projects including Netflix's Wednesday, The Witcher, Shadow and Bone, as well as Prime Video's The Peripheral, recently revealed how she uses her position to push her own political worldview. During an interview as part of Janelle Riley's Acting Up newsletter that was subsequently published by Variety, Holland was first asked about which project confirmed she wanted to work in the field of casting. As part of her answer, she said, "I think the first time I felt like a casting director was when I worked on something called The Kill Team by Dan Krause, which was the story of American soldiers over in Afghanistan. It was the first time I understood that casting wasn't just finding beautiful people who could do the American accent convincingly, but that casting could have a real, profound impact on the people watching it." She later added, "You can affect change in whatever tiny way because you are in people's homes and they're watching this world. And that sort of solidified when I had a child. She's 5 now, and I thought how hard it is to be a girl. I remember thinking I have to help her because she's going to come under attack, just like I did, just because she's a girl. Maybe she'll be lucky and get to 9 before somebody calls her a B word. And it made me so sad that she was going to experience that, and I couldn't protect her from that." In other words, she has convinced herself that her daughter is going to experience some negative things like she did using her own personal confirmation biases and then applying those in her work. Holland asserted, "But what I could do is to change the way people see women through casting. I can make them powerful and empowering, and then the floodgates will open to them." Well, what she has actually done is to contribute to the now overused strong woman trope, thinking that audiences want to see the strong women characters when in fact more and more people are getting tired of it. Plus, it's not part of the source material, which she clearly doesn't care about. Holland went on to reveal she applies this theory to every job she takes on, saying, "I do apply this theory to everything, and it makes me push boundaries a little harder because I think representation is important, not just for women, but all minority groups. Like, people have different physical abilities, and I think it's important they're seen in strong and fierce roles." Realizing this was a real moment of falling in love with my craft in a way that feels very specific to me. And there she admits it. What she's doing in her job is all about pleasing herself and her personal confirmation biases. It has nothing to do with being true to the source material or to the audience at large, which she admittedly wants to manipulate. Holland went on to specifically explain why she chose to race replace Yennefer in The Witcher, saying, "I am always the first to champion diversity in all its glory. One that springs to mind was the character of Yennefer in The Witcher. Lauren Schmidt-Hissrich is the showrunner, and we work so well together, and she's so open to conversations. In the book, she's described as the most beautiful woman in the world. This was a few years ago, and I'd like to think things have changed. But when you think about people's unconscious bias, especially in the fantasy world, it felt like these worlds were predominantly white. And I remember saying, I feel like we need to challenge what people think of as the standard of beauty. And having a woman of color in this role does incredibly powerful things to the people watching. In other words, she deliberately chose to override the author's original intent for the sake of pushing woke identity politics. This has become Hollywood's mantra. Author Andrzej Sapkowski described Yennefer in The Last Wish as having, quote, a pale triangular face, violet eyes, and narrow, slightly contorted lips appearing beneath the black tresses, unquote. Holland, and apparently Hissrich, clearly chose to cast an actress, in this case Chalotra, that did not look like how the character was depicted in Sapkowski's original works, and she did it because she apparently has an issue with white women being depicted and described as being beautiful. This philosophy of eschewing the source material to promote woke identity politics at Netflix appears to be massively misfiring, as the recent premiere of The Witcher Season 3 saw a 50% decline in hours viewed as compared with the show's second season premiere. The show's Season 2 premiered on December 17th, 2021, and quickly topped Netflix's charts as the most viewed English-language show, with 142.4 million hours viewed in the first week. It continued its dominance into the second week with an even greater 168.4 million hours viewed. The release of the third season of the show on June 29, 2023, saw the series top the English-language charts, but it only brought in 73 million hours viewed. And instead of rising in viewed hours as the second season's episodes had, the third season's episodes saw a decline to 66.5 million hours viewed, despite still being top on the charts. It also saw its total views decline from 15.2 million to 13.8 million. By its third week, its hours viewed had declined to 32.1 million hours and was down to 6.7 million views. When people abandon a show like The Witcher, they don't come back. This show is never going to regain the viewers that it once had, so the most logical course of action for Netflix to take at this point in time would be to cancel the series. Cavill left the show because of what the show's writers and its showrunner did. And back in October of last year, during an interview about the MCU, writer Beau DeMaio, who had once worked on The Witcher, said, "My general rule was you had to be a fan, no questions. I've been on a show, namely The Witcher, where some of the writers were not or actively disliked the books and games, even actively mocking the source material. It's a recipe for disaster and bad morale. Fandom as a litmus test checks egos and makes all the long nights worth it. You have to respect the work before you're allowed to add to its legacy." And I wholeheartedly agree with that. A few weeks later, the show's showrunner, Lauren Schmidt-Hissrich, refuted claims that the show's writers mocked the novels on which the show and video games, of course, are based. For weeks now, the showrunner has been subjected to complaints and messages from angry fans who are unhappy at the direction Netflix's The Witcher series has taken. Even just a casual scroll through Hissrich's comments on this The Witcher Blood Origin teaser Instagram post shows hundreds of public messages, many of which deride Hissrich and her team's decisions, with some insisting that she read the books. And this was just before the truly awful The Witcher Blood Origin prequel series was released on Netflix, which was completely rejected by both critics and the audience alike, as I had talked about in a video that I had released back on December 26th, 2022. It truly is time for Netflix to cancel The Witcher. There is no point in continuing this disaster of a series any longer. Thanks for watching today, and a huge thanks to everyone who has subscribed to our channel. We appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like button, and please feel free to share a comment. If you'd like to help support this channel, please press the red subscribe button, and please press the bell to receive notifications for new content. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Twitter by clicking on the links in the description. Until next time, this is Out Loud Geek.